Hello, welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and today we are having the Spider-Man Council meeting, and we have on the docket what I think is the most underrated, maybe most underappreciated, best Spider-Man story that no one talks about. And I'm assuming a lot of people out there are not doing that, or a lot of Spider-Man fans haven't done so already, or read it already, whatever I'm trying to say. So if you're ready for a treat of a lot of deep conversation, this is the Spider-Man show for you. Or just if you want to just ball out, which who doesn't want to ball out? But if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Comic Binge. Super appreciate everyone who already has. Keep growing, and I appreciate everyone who already has and watches all the way through. Super appreciated. So today we're talking about The Child Within by obviously the legendary J.M. DeMatteis, art by the beautiful and wonderful, most underrated Sal Buscema, or if I'm probably mispronouncing his name, someone will correct me at some point. But I'm excited. But of course, I have the council with me, the council members themselves. First, Adam, aka Pizza Time. Adam, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right.
Doing all right.
Gearing up,
Gearing up, just reading comics, doing your thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll get into your history here about this in a second, but it's always good to have you. Appreciate it like crazy.
Yeah.
Next on the docket, we've got Nico, aka Mr. Baby. How are we doing today,
What's
sir?
up, gentlemen? Yo, I'm very excited.
I'm very excited to hear what you say about the story. I have a random question to put you on the spot.
Yes.
Okay, you ready? Is your girl watching live?
I told her about it tonight. I don't know if she is. She came on the family trip with us, so she's pretty.
Megan, right?
Pretty
Megan?
Yep.
Megan.
Yep.
I am disheartened if you're not watching live.
I'm
You're
gonna
a man
show her
right
this
now.
tomorrow if she's
All
not.
right,
But,
I'm gonna call her out. I'm calling her out. If you're not watching, if you can't watch for at least your man, you're killing me. You're killing me too. So anyway,
I love it. So
I know. I love it. Yes, you're awesome as always. We'll have you on soon. You're coming back soon. So yeah. She has a chance to make it up. Let's say that.
She does have an opportunity. Yeah, very soon.
She does. But I wish you're watching now. 5 people watching. Super appreciate you all. Please go do what this says right down here. I appreciate it. Next on the list, El Corazon. Javi,
Hey, that's me.
that's you. How are you doing, sir?
What's up, gentlemen?
Just
A
hanging
little
out.
tired, but I am excited to be here talking this really old Spider-Man story that I love. So I'm glad we're getting the word out because Mr. DeMatteis, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I really should know by now.
Yeah.
Not only did he write my favorite Spider-Man story, probably Kraven's Last Hunt, but this is a sequel to that. And tomorrow, at your local comic shop, another series of his, Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin, is coming out. So we got a little bit of synergy here with one of the all-time great Spider-Man, one of the all-time great comic writers, period. Not just Spider-Man, but so I'm excited to promote this story and hopefully they'll get eyes on it and get some eyes on his new book too. Because I mean he just cranks them out, man. He cranks out classics.
Does. Hey, one thing, was it you, Javi, who came up with this idea to do this episode? I think it was. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, back in February. So it's been a long
Javi's
time
the best.
coming.
I just want to say Javi's the best. Like Javi is the best. Like you are. I think everyone here would know.
Truth.
I love everyone here, but you're the best of us. Enough said. I think everyone would agree to that. Yes.
No, you guys are all awesome. I'm just happy that I get to talk with you guys about something I love. So
well, yes, classic T-shirt indeed. Yes, and last but not least, the dude himself abides by Spidey dude.
The dude himself.
The dude himself.
I'm
just
gonna
said
be.
dude himself.
What's
Isn't
up,
the
boys
name
and
of
girls?
Spidey dude?
Hello, my
Girl.
fellow kids. As freaking Josh said in our group chat earlier. Made me feel like I'm 90.
Well,
hello, everybody.
But you're a young 85.
Young 85.
Listen,
Yeah.
I was going to ask for some new tennis balls for my walker, but they're a little expensive, and Waylon keeps stealing them.
It's
That's pretty damn
coming,
good.
Yeah, it's coming sooner than you realize. I'll just say that. So it's coming for all of us. So anyway, back to the what we're talking about today. We're going to talk about the Spider-Man Council. We're talking about the Child Within, and there's a lot to talk about here. And it's crazy because the more as I become a Spider-Man fan, the more people I'm realizing anyway, more people have not read enough of the classic, very classic J.M. DeMatteis Sal Buscema run that is obviously through the Spectacular Spider-Man era from the late 80s to the mid 90s, late 90s, basically.
Early 90s ish.
Well, because he was so on for he was right before the Clone Saga, right?
Yeah, but that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, no, but he was. Yeah, but he was.
Okay, he left. So I got you on this. This is the beginning of his run in 91 or 90. He would be on this title all the way through until Michelinie leaves. He takes over Amazing, and then he left right around Maximum Clonage.
Oh God!
Came back.
2 words I don't like saying.
Came back to Spectacular with issue 241, which is the kind of the coda to the Clone Saga. It was the first book after Revelations. And then he would be on the book all the way up until almost its final issue of that volume of Spectacular. He left during the Gathering of the Five.
Okay.
When John Byrne took over and then was setting up the Mackie Byrne reboot.
Right.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So anyway, I'm gonna go over here for a second because I want to. What? Just roll with it, okay? Just roll with it.
All right.
Roll with it.
It works.
So
looking like
no.
Wow.
All
right, I'm gonna shut up.
All right, it's okay. You're good. So for people who are wondering, I really want, because obviously the comic binge exists to introduce people to comic books and to try to eliminate any kind of barrier of entry of whatever they want to do, right? And that goes for whatever level your fandom is, whether it be if you're a casual Spider-Man fan or if you're a hardcore Spider-Man fan or if you whatever. I don't care. My whole point is to try to talk about, just try to get that barrier away, of ego away, of like, well, of course I know the story. I'm trying to get rid of all that crap. And I really want to talk about stuff that really I'm passionate about and comic stories that we're all passionate about, or someone on the show here, right? Which I'm very excited to hear about everyone's thoughts on this. Now, I want to talk about this series. Javi, it was Javi's idea 100%, but I'm glad he makes me do this stuff because I'm always really trepidatious to do this. But I'm in retrospect, I'm glad he does, because one thing about the Child Within and my history with it is I don't want to say I want to say this not like lightly, but I don't want to make it seem like I'm like one for one necessarily, but I relate a lot to the story, unfortunately. And I've talked about it on the MCU fan show from the Moon Knight episode. And that was more like, oh my God, like I had like PTSD almost from that episode. But this is elements of that. And a lot, we're obviously going to be spoiling a lot of this. I'm going to ask everyone like usual, try to do it their best, but we're going to talk about some deep stuff from this. But the one thing I would say about the story is that it's because you might know what happens. It doesn't really take away from the actual comic, in my opinion, because to me, to read this comic is to experience this comic book, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I think that to me is what's so important about this comic specifically. And what sucks is that the themes that J.M. DeMatteis introduces in this story it's layered upon layers. And that's very uncommon for a story about Spider-Man, much less a kid superhero comic book. And I think what's beautiful about the era of the 90s, it really made me think as a kid, as I bought these comic books and read them, really made me think and reflect on my own life. Even then, I'm not just BSing, I'm being serious here, because I had this comic book right here. This one specifically, I remember this very vividly, because we get Harry in this comic book doing things that are, it's you know, you have basically the ghost of his abusive father haunting Harry. And it made me really reflect on my own life and my own family very much. And when you add in the vermin aspect, which is a whole different layer that, you know, they introduced in this, it's a lot. And I remember, because I told you guys before the show, and I'll tell everyone here watching, when I read these comics, I didn't have every single issue, but I had most of them. I remember I had this one, and I had this issue in particular, and this issue. Let me find out. Oh my gosh, I think I lost it here. 1 second. This one, and where did it go? Sorry, my things get all mixed up. I did have this issue as well. I remember this very vividly because of. I'll get to that in a little bit. But obviously I have this comic book somewhere, but I'll throw up the cover art because that's where it's from. I had this issue as well. This one effed me up. I ain't gonna lie. And so anyway, this series and this story specifically means a lot to me. And when I told everyone, I didn't read this. I got all the issues later. I think I had most of the issues, I think, collected eventually, but I never read them for whatever reason. After we had our daughter, I went online and I was thinking I was missing an issue or something like that. And I had someone was selling it for like 20, the whole thing for like $20. And I got all like nice bagged and boarded issues, right? As we're seeing here. And I'm like, you know, it's time to read this bad boy. And I gotta tell you, it really moved me way more than I was even anticipating. And I just want, I wanted to go first to set the tone a little bit, because this is a little bit more serious. I mean, I want to jokes a little bit still, but it's a very serious matter that I relate to, like I said, more than I like to admit. And it's powerful. And I just want to really say thank you to JMD Mateus and Sal Buscema and all the crew, the colorists, the inkers, everybody, and Danny Figueroa for the guts to write this story, because it is such a moving, powerful story that is moving, obviously continuity with the Green Goblin and Vermin, but telling layered upon layered stories for Spider-Man. And I said this in the title, and I mean it. This is not a clickbait. This is a story that I don't see a lot of people talk about. Obviously, we're all homies and we talk about it. We all know this is legit. But, when we talk about like serious, like legitimate, artistic, great Spider-Man stories that are like transcend, just like are just awesome, fun, like Maximum Carnage or whatever, like we always look to Batman as like year one and all that stuff. And he has countless stories of in the comic books that are about like are serious and people look to as like important, of the medium. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think this is one of the things for Spider-Man, and it's not lost on me that JMD Mateus is behind, I think, two of the best Spider-Man stories ever written, which is obviously the Kraven's Last Hunt and Child Within. And Javi, you said it best when you said this is basically a sequel. It didn't even dawn on me until I read it this time. I'm like, you're right. This is 100% a sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt. Like, there's the Soul of the Hunter. No. This is the sequel.
Well, Soul of the Hunter to me is the first sequel, and this is the second. This is the third in the trilogy, in my opinion.
Did Soul come out after this, though?
Soul came out.
They reference it in the first issue. They're like, "Oh,
it came out the year before." Yeah, so
that's right. Okay, yeah, they did have the editor's note. I forgot.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm wrapping up here, guys. I'm sorry. I don't like to usually go first, but it really meant a lot to me to talk about this for a second. But I think that this story is criminally like underrated and unknown. And if you're out there looking for a great Spider-Man story, this is it. This is issues 178 to 185. Adam, am I right on this?
84. 184.
Well, 85 if you want to get another great issue, but we'll talk about that in a second later on. But 178 to 184, it's not on Marvel Unlimited. Go out there, buy this comic book out there, or start badgering Marvel to actually collect this into a nice prestige format or something like that, or get it out on Unlimited, because this story is maybe a top 10 Spider-Man story in my opinion. Maybe one day I'll do my top 10 for the council, and it'll be a big marathon episode once we get to 10,000 subs or whatever, which will be like
come on, let's be like, yeah, when we get to 2,000, let's do our top 10. That'll be fun.
No, 10,000, because that'll be like 40 years. We'll have a lot more to choose from at that point. So, but anyway,
if we don't do it here, we'll do it on Spidey Dude.
I digress. This is a story y'all need to read, and I'm gonna give it to I'm just gonna automatically go to the next person, which I'm gonna put them on the spot here, and it's gonna be Javi, because he's the one that kind of made this thing go from the first place, and I want to give him kind of the next step, and then I'll let everyone else have a free for all after that. But Javi, thank you for making me read this again. This was a really important comic, and I want to make sure that you get your next say. And so, thanks for letting me go on a little tirade there, people. I appreciate it. Javi, you have the floor. Go ahead.
This is just one of those like big impact books of I say childhood, but I mean, I was 14 when this came out. But this was when I was really starting to get heavy into reading and collecting comic books and taking care of them properly. And for the most part, because money was so scarce, because I was 14 and didn't really have much of a job. My primary bread and butter was Amazing Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, and then Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. So it was pretty rare that I would pick up one of the other Spider Satellite titles like Spec or Web. But at this point already, like Kraven's Last Hunt was just one of those iconic stories that just blew my 10-year-old mind when it came out. So knowing that this was kind of like a sequel to that it was going to have Vermin again, and just the storytelling that JMD provides, like I had to get this book. And I remember reading it with my best friend Anthony at the time, and we were in like some office, or maybe I was just rereading it again, because I reread my books a lot back then because I didn't have as many as I do now. But it always left an impact, the way that he tells a story, the way he gets you into the characters' heads, the psychological aspects of it. That wasn't something that I saw a lot of at that time. It just made it feel more mature, which is a pretty big deal when you're 14 reading comic books. I felt like I grew up into like the maturity level with that. And I hate to admit this, I wasn't a big Sal Buscema fan at the time. Like it was his art was a little too jagged for me. Like it wasn't as clean or and smooth as like some of the more popular artists of the time that I really liked. And, but there was something about his storytelling and his layouts that always just really resonated with me. And, similar with like Kelly Jones, like I've seen the error of my ways now, and I love his stuff. And I've got like some original like color artwork from his Spec run, just because just the way he sequentially tells a story and does his breakdowns, and like he moves the camera in a cinematic way, but not in like the modern comic cinematic way where everything is like a widescreen 239:1 panel. Like he'll do your 9-panel grids, he'll break everything up, but like he moves the camera in such a way that you feel like this story. And it was something too that the impact that this series has had, not not only on Spectacular Spider-Man and just Spider-Man at large, because this is what brings us to Spectacular 189 and Spectacular 200, which is the original Death of Harry Osborn. Like, there's a lot of stuff in here that like, you don't get Willem Dafoe coming back in Spider-Man 2 and 3 haunting Harry without this story. Like, does not happen 100%. Without it. And it was something that I always wanted to see in the movie. So when Raimi did that, I was like, oh my God, this was like one of my favorite parts of that. And you don't get, as much as people deride it, the Amazing Spider-Man movies and the parents subplot that never got finished because the trilogy didn't get finished. Like, everyone's like, well, why Peter doesn't care about his parents? Here it shows that he did care. Like, their leaving had a substantial impact on him that he didn't even realize until he was exposed to the things he's exposed to in the story. Well, we'll say it like that. And like, you don't have that subplot without something like this. And I wanted to call it to attention because it's just a tour de force of comic books. And I mean, just look at the panel we have on the screen, like the anguish that he has, the way the word balloons, not the word balloons, just the thoughts they're scattered and they're all over the place. Like, no one at this point had told the story, in my experience, like JMD had done. So it's a must-have for me, and I don't understand why we don't have, like, you know, other collections of it, why it's not available digitally. Because like Kraven's Last Hunt, I've got the issues, a softcover trade, a hardcover trade, a giant hardcover trade, digital. Like this, I just have these, you know, 30-year-old comic books. And to like Paul's point, like there was, I think I missed like one of the issues, like this one on the stands, because it was hard back then. I didn't have a car, and the Aftermath I didn't even know about until years after it came out, and finally grabbed it and read it. So
right,
yeah, I just it's such a good story, and I'm rambling at this point. I want to hear what everybody else's connection is to the book.
Can I jump in?
Well, Zach, go ahead, man.
So the first time I got my hands, I don't have all of the books. I have 4 of the, and I actually just recently bought one of the ones that I already had twice. So I have 2 copies of of part 6, but I have 4 of the 6 issues. I got them all at San Diego. But I remember reading all these issues and just going, damn, this is such good stuff. And then I've been doing a chronological read through. So to kind of give people context on Spec, Jerry Conway started with 137 and went all the way up until the 2 issues before this. So he had like a 40-issue run. He was also writing Web of Spider-Man. He literally leaves because he becomes a showrunner on a TV show, and he couldn't do his writing.
Like Father Dowling's Mysteries or something?
Yeah,
with the dad from Happy Days.
Yeah. Yeah. And he got that opportunity, so he ended up leaving Marvel for a little bit to go do that. And so they had Kurt Busiek come in, write a couple of issues, and then this is the story that starts the DeMatteis run. Was the better book overall, because it had that such lengthy run with Conway and then such lengthy run here with DeMatteis. So this story just sets the tone for the entirety of the seminal parts of the run, like you mentioned, Javi. Vermin is his pet character. He introduced him in Captain America, which they reference in the story. Obviously, he brought him in for the Kraven's Last Hunt, which is the first time DeMatteis wrote Spec. So, like, reading this, I had read panels from this with J.R. Fettinger's Green Goblin articles that he wrote. So I had read parts of this before I read the books. Reading the books, you would never have known that Sal Buscema and him never had worked together. If you just come in cold. I mean, he let Sal cook, and it was banger after banger after banger. story after story. I have pretty much the rest of the run from 190 or 189 on through 200. I think I'm missing like a couple of issues. And it's just, there's the death of Vermin. There's the Puma story that he did. I never gave a crap about Puma until I read that. But this is a story that just, having now reread it and gone through my chronological read through, I appreciate whomever at Sony read these books and wanted to adapt parts of this with the parent stuff. Some could argue that it's a little heavy-handed here, but the origins of shut up. The origins of Vermin here is just it's painful. You know, we talked about this when we had him on Spidey Dude Experience the first time. He finally got to do Spider Side right. This is where he gets to do Vermin right and actually make you give a crap about Vermin and make you not just it's his pet character. No, like you read these books and you're heartbroken over what happens. Very subtle subtext. There's never anything explicit or implicit that's actually said. But if you're an adult reading this book, you know exactly what's happening. If you're a kid reading this book, you just assume that his daddy was very bad to him. You don't know why, don't know what the bad thing is, but it's something.
Well, they do say it actually.
Oh, did they say?
He does say what it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was just alluded to, but Vermin does say like.
Yeah, he does say it. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And also to give this people context of the time period of this is being published. This is right around the time of 350. So Larson's about to leave and Bagley's coming on. McFarlane's still on his adjectiveless run. And then you had Web of Spider-Man that was, I think at this point, this is when Mackie starts his run on Spider-Man. So it's a pretty good era of which to start reading. It's a great era of the when there was four books. Specifically pertaining to this story, it is it's a hard read, especially as an adult. I think it's written really well enough to where things are kind of going over your head when you're a kid, but reading it as an adult and as a parent, it breaks your heart. I'd love to get the perspective of the young whippersnappers.
Well, we'll get the young Nico, Mr. Baby. You go last. I'm very curious. So Adam, why don't you go next, and we'll wait in anticipation for Mr. Baby's thoughts. His first time reading the story.
I feel like everyone's really said everything there is to say about it. I think because I'm one of the younger guys here, and this story is as old as I am, so I didn't really grow up reading it. But I guess all I can say is, I appreciate what DeMatteis does. I appreciate how literary his writing is, like with the inner thoughts, the Peter's captions. It's very it's like he's writing a novel. And Sal's art is just so visceral and dynamic and just has this primal force going through it all. It just jumps off the page, and he's great at he is great at making you feel like the writing and art combined are great at making you feel what these characters are going to. Paul, you put up that page where Harry's looking at the photos, and I'm thinking about the juxtaposition of like Harry as a child there, and he just has this blank stare, and then you go later, you see a picture of Peter as a child, and he just looks so happy, and it's just it's so the dichotomy of it all, just it's so good. He just it's just just and like in this too, young Edward in the bed, just like totally, you know, just like what, you know, like, yeah, I don't know, like no one, I feel like no one has done in the history of the character, no one has really, you know, gone into the psychology this well. You know, what really, I mean, you know, there's some stuff. It's like, oh, we get Peter's inner monologue, you know, we've gotten it for 60 years, but like, it's not like this. It's like, you know, what is, you know, how he's feeling, like what is wrong, how each character is feeling, you know, Harry's denial, like, oh, you know, I had a great childhood. It's like, no, I didn't. You didn't. And Peter's missing piece, and Edward's trauma, and working through all of it. It's just it's gut wrenching. It's
1 second, Zach.
It's a gut punch. And the two just work beautifully together. DeMatteis and Buscema, they're an all-star team.
Yeah.
The crazy element is if you're reading like ASM and the other books at the same time,
you're not getting stuff like this.
You're not like ASM during this era is big bombastic popcorn action,
which is great.
Whereas McFarlane's is very neo-noir. Webb is just kind of picking up the pieces and trying to figure its own way out, but like more crime elements.
Webb always is.
Well, like the crime, it's more the crime, like the street.
When Conway is on it, he like there's more of a focus for Webb.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah, I love Conway. Anything Conway does with Spider-Man is usually always good. So.
I will say this: Mackie brings that street level element when he starts his run. So it did have a signature style. It just is overshadowed by the other 3 books. And so with this book, it's like this is your basic instinct. This is your Fatal Attraction. This is your like psychological thrillers, especially that were prevalent in the 80s and 90s in film. And you can definitely see that in a Spider-Man book here.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this page, and it's like he's literally leaping off the page there. It's so good.
Yeah.
There's so much movement there. He's a master. I mean, and the thing is, like, his old, like, you get into Conway's run, like the second half, and that's when his style is really starting to, like, he's an artist, and he had a really solid style, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, but like you get to the later half of the 80s when, and I guess it's, I don't know, the McFarlane influence of it all or something, but it really pushes Sal to just like go for it, and it becomes really unique and memorable. And that's the thing too. I guess my final point is, like, this is something, like, a good story sticks with you after you read it, and this is a prime example. There's a lot to think about and unpack, and what's the word?
Venom, you may be big and nasty, but you're no match for Spider-Man.
I had no idea.
Did you not know it talked?
I had no idea. So I just grabbed it and I hit my thumb slipped and I went, what the? Anyway, Adam, I'm so sorry.
That's all good.
Can you clip that? Like, someone's got to clip that. Someone's got to clip that.
That is going to be his next
TikTok or something, and it's gonna. Yeah.
That's just for Adam. If it's not a talking spider doll, it's 7-Eleven, and I just feel bad for the guy.
I'm so sorry.
No, but there's a lot to what is the? Why am I forgetting the word? Not critique, but there's a lot to
consume, digest. Unpack. Did you say that word?
Synonyms: digest, unpack.
There's a lot to I guess unpack is good. There's a lot to not research.
A lot of layers of the onion.
Yeah, like Shrek, you know. There's a lot of Shrek elements in this book.
Brilliant.
Well, Go ahead. Sorry, Adam.
Yeah, before Mr. Baby gets
come on, Zach. He's been waiting a long time. Come on,
I
gotta get Zach.
You guys are good. We got time.
Go,
you guys are good.
Right,
so, you know what? Never mind. Since you just completely interrupted my train of thought. Thanks, Paul. Go ahead.
No worries. All right.
Oh,
sorry.
no.
I just want to.
Zach, let me help you retrain your thoughts.
Sure.
The spider doll talked and we laughed, and then that made.
I know that was.
I know.
Distracting. I apologize.
It's
fine.
My
fault.
Go on, Mr. Baby.
Yeah.
Analyze, I think, is kind of where I'm
there
going.
There it is. There it is.
You could write a paper about this book.
It's a very real thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's really hard to follow all of that, and I truly mean that as a compliment. I'm on one hand very, very upset this was the first time I read it because of how powerful I think it is, and yet I'm really glad that my first time reading it is like I get to experience this with you all, because you know, had I read this years ago outside of my father, who we would have had a blast talking about this, but also, you know, a hard conversation talking about, there would have been no one else to talk to until I was in this space. So I'm, in a way, I'm really thankful, and I'll truly never forget this read. So Spec is like one of my blind spots, outside some stories like, you know, I mean, like Spectacular 200 with what happens to Harry. We talked about it on the show before. I think that's one of the first episodes I ever did. Outside of some larger stories, me and my dad have been collecting the hardcovers they've been releasing. So I just got through like volume 6 or whatever. I'm still on some of like the Roger Stern stuff. So when you guys recommended this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to this eventually, but of course I'm going to read it for the show. Yeah, you called it a top 10, Paul. I'm there. And I'm there because of how difficult it was to read, but also how at this point in my life too, like reading at this age, and you know, like I don't have children or anything, but there's a lot that I've learned in my career and stuff about, you know, what happens in childhood. You can go your whole life and not really realize. And this was relatable in a different way. Nothing really with my family, but not to get into anything else too much, is in the last couple of years, really working on myself and stuff about me, I'm realizing how many things, you know, happened at such a young age that I didn't even, I had feelings and thoughts and reactions to things that I didn't even know where it was coming from. And so to see Peter go through it and have like the root of it all be, not to spoil, but really what the root of it all was really profound. Like I haven't seen him really deal with that in comics on this scale, on this level of depth and intensity. Yeah. So like that was insane to me reading that. Like that was, upon finishing it, like that's what stuck with me the most. Then I went back to the rest, which is there's so much more to dive into with Vermin and everything. But that was really heavy hitting. And then the Vermin stuff, like some of you said it, like, wow, it takes, what a swing to write something like that and to really allude and even share what happened, you know, to little Edward there. And I just thought it was utterly profound. And the visual language too in this, like there are so many frames I wrote down that I wanted to talk about that I'm not gonna, are gonna show up, but just the visual language of this too, it's so fantastic, but it's also so, some of them are so heartbreaking. Like the opening of I think it's 181, where you have them, the two, we're looking at two different photo albums. We're looking at Edward was when he was a child, and like there's no words on those pages. You're just made to sit with it. Javi talked a lot about like a feeling of like the camera, which I think is so true and so well said. But like there are literally shots in here that I want framed and signed and hung on walls because how much they resonated. So yeah, this is an utterly profound story. I have no idea why it's not talked about more. Like, I'll be honest with you, like this is eons better than stories I know people consider to be in like the top 10 or the top 5. Like, and I don't mean that to sound like hyperbole or recency bias. Like, it's just that deep and it's that well written and it's gorgeous yet disturbing to look at too. Like it just fires on all cylinders. And yeah, like even something like this, my goodness. There's also a lot to it. It doesn't, it's so well written too. And then I'll stop rambling here.
We're good, man. Keep going.
It never shows its cards. Like I was surprised at how well things are hidden, so to speak. Like when you really realize what that first little child was, it's Edward, but it's also, like that to me, I was like, wow, I really did not predict that all the way yet. And I think opening all the issues with the
camera,
the recordings, I could word retrieval, right?
Basically.
These were insane. That I'm opening a Spider-Man comic and like seeing all this stuff, and yeah, man, this was a I don't want to say treat, but the experience and getting to share it now with you all, it does feel like a treat, which is really cool.
It's a full gourmet meal.
Gourmet meal.
Before I give it,
go ahead,
Zach.
Well, as this is, it can still be a treat, and it can still move you, even if you've never personally experienced that type of abuse. And hopefully, people that have experienced this is kind of cathartic for them, but it opens so many eyes.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful piece to give to somebody to say, hey, there are people out there that are going through this. This is this is 30 plus years ago, folks.
Yeah.
And it's still happening today. And so, except how far, think about how far we've come as a society in that 30-year period. This was taboo. This was not.
Yeah, it was.
It's also notable. This is the first time we see Dr. Kafka be introduced as a character.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Yeah,
this is her first. I just double checked according to the Marvel, and they're pretty accurate. The Marvel database. This is her first appearance, and so it's significant. The fact I kind of also you talked about this being a sequel to Kraven's Last Hunt. I view it almost as a prequel to the death of Harry Osborn.
Well, this is obviously
but also it's stop it with the reactions. The issue that I kind of, it's funny when you're reading this sequentially, because there was during the Inferno storyline, they were kind of trying to tease Harry as a hero, and then Peter is a complete jerk to Harry to discourage him. His heart was in the right place, but he's a complete ass to Harry. And then this is the outcome to that. And it was just going to be like, oh, it's kind of treated as a throwaway line until DeMatteis takes that and says, I'm going to take that ball and run.
Well, and if I may too, it's obvious that with this story, this was a vehicle to get Harry to where he wanted to go. He wanted to bring back Green Goblin. No one wanted to really touch him. Like you said, because David Michelinie had introduced him in Inferno, but then remember in Web of, he tries to join he joins a crime fighting thing. That's when he reflects on, Harry, are you trying to be a good guy again? That don't do that, whatever. Like you said, there's obviously a vehicle to get Harry to 200, to get the Green Goblin back and bring that in, and because he uses Vermin as a way to usher in the idea of duality and inner demons and PTSD and trauma, and he takes that as a vehicle to use that to wedge between obviously Spider-Man and Green Goblin, aka Peter and Harry, and we get just phenomenal moments in this. These are some of my favorite Green Goblin. Yeah, it's so good. And I think this is where I think this series or this story gets even better is the fact, because I'm a costume guy, and he really uses the mask as a way to emphasize the trauma, right? Like they're, it's
protection.
It's not just a way of like, we're superheroes. It's like, yeah, but it's a way, that's why they become different people once they wear these masks. And you have this whole thing where Peter and or Peter's like, he tells him like, you're not joking anymore. I see you're joking back to your normal self or whatever. And that's the thing. Like Peter, when he dons a suit, we all know he gets that personality side. He can roll with it because he's hiding. He's not, when he was a kid, he was not he was not the same person. He couldn't be that when he was a child, teenager, but when he puts a costume on and put the mask on, he became a different person, just like Harry does himself. And I think what's fascinating here is that we really get I'm trying to find the right page here. Where is it at? Here it is. The thing is, we get Harry, and he has his mask, which is he turns on the hatred with the mask. And then and that's why I love this line so much and this panel so much, is that Harry's like, let's take it off. We're embracing these sides of ourselves that, we're hiding. And with Peter, obviously there was something so deep rooted in his psyche that he didn't even know was there really. And another thing I'll add, and I'll throw it to the floor here, you guys. And Javi, I'm curious what you got, any thoughts on this, but I forgot that Vermin's like part of his powers is he brings out this like animalistic kind of like fight or flight nature, psychic kind of like psychotic nature that makes you go. And I didn't realize that. So he really emphasizes, and it gets Peter in a vulnerable spot that we don't ever get to see very often, but it gives you an actual like story reason why we haven't gotten that, because Peter's a lot more, I've made it very, I've made it on your show, Zach, and on my show when we're talking about Spider-Man, Peter's got a temper, but he's always able to kind of rein it in to some extent. Well, this is him unhinged. Like we saw Kraven's Last Hunt when he's put in his, the last, almost dying, but this is different because he's being kind of manipulated through like the powers of Vermin. With that being,
which retroactively, when you read this and then go back and read Kraven's Last Hunt, it makes even more sense why Kraven would have picked him, because he wanted to draw that spider out of him, and he probably studied Vermin and realized that. So the point I was trying to make earlier, before Mr. Baby was going on, what somebody mentioned about the artwork. If you read Buscema's stuff, and we have a show on the Spidey Dude Radio Network called the South Buscema Era Podcast, they start basically from the death of the Sin Eater or Return of the Sin Eater. It's very clear. He goes from a very Romita-esque, and his style evolves, and it really kind of like you say, it starts the second half of that right around the Tombstone stuff. And then you start reading this, and it's really a lot evolved with not just McFarlane, but also Larson too. There's some Larson influences, and you see that especially even with the transition from Larson to Bagley too. And I think it elevated the game even more, and it made him even better, because he's like, him and Romita Jr. right, in my opinion, are some of the best storyboarders in the game, and probably third would be Ron Friends. They can just
I would take Ron Friends over JRJR personally.
Well, I'm talking like JR's 90s stuff, like especially some of that, and even the JMS run. It's really, really well done in terms of the crafting of it. And so, but yeah, man, Buscema is so massively underrated. The fact that he's in his 90s, we don't got much more time with him on this earth, and he deserves to get his flowers with the reprint of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, and before I throw it to you, I just want to mention too that you brought up as well, I think when we were in our DMs here, and you had talked about how, man, these like layouts, and it's not in this comic. I think it's actually in 185, if I'm not mistaken. But the issue where Peter is looking for Harry, and he's like, and he finds one of his hideouts, and there's no words. It's like I think it's like a 6-panel grid or something like that. I think it's 6 like square, like pure square panels, kind of like this one. It's kind of like this, I think. But it basically is Peter. He breaks open an empty like closet, and it's just a Green Goblin costume.
That's the beginning of the Vulture arc, I think.
Oh, yeah, Vulture arc. Yeah, you're right. So, and then like it's just like him like staring at the Green Goblin costume with a spider web cobweb over the costume, and he's just staring at it. There's no words,
and it's the masks again.
Yeah, the mask again.
It's Spider-Man's. It's a close-up of Spider-Man's face mask, and then he's staring at just the Green Goblin mask.
Yeah, that is
190 has the opening splash page with Kafka holding the Green Goblin mask, and it's very similar. He plays that theme a lot during this run.
And I just want to say that looking back and knowing, especially back then, because I don't think Larson and McFarlane are like, they're creative storytellers, but they're not the most efficient storytellers, I would say. Like, that's just my opinion. Like, at least at that time. Sal Buscema, in retrospect, is just a master storyteller. Just a master. And think about it, he was competing with these guys who are rock stars, superstars, when he's been in the business for like 20 more years than they have.
Yeah, they were like half his age.
And no one cared. And back then, like the Wizards and all the cool like comic outlets at the time never gave Sal any props because he wasn't cool, because he's old, whatever. But really,
he's so
Duke
cool.
could do laps. Well, yeah, but Duke could do laps around them with storytelling. And then these stories, retrospectively, are just hugely amazing storytelling and just efficiency. And I just want to say, like, like you get stuff like this. This is simple, but just the fact that he can't like Harry can't look at Peter as Harry when they're both on the same level, like, right? Like when they're not freaking out and they're just looking at each other, he's like, I gotta get it back on. Like, he's scared, and you see it there. There's no words. That is phenomenal storytelling 101 right there. I love
subtleties, and it's not the same panel each time. The subtleties in the facial expressions. Yes, the bodies are static, but there's subtleties in those faces. You can see the differences. It's just let the cake bake, and we are eating good, boys.
I have a couple things I want to touch on really quick. Well, so to jump off of those 3 panels you just showed, I'm really, there's something about the page. It's the page after that when he's got his hand out toward, like, Harry bails, but he's got his hand out toward him, and I look at that because it's another 6 panel page, so he starts with his hand out to him, and it goes down over the next couple panels, and it almost, to me, maybe I'm just like reading into it too much, it almost, like, the body language, almost, he goes from like reaching out to him to almost like he's waving goodbye. Like, this is
at first glance,
like that's like, this is it, and I wanted to also say, Paul, you're talking about the masks. Harry's like, oh yeah, we're Peter and Harry, we're not Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. And this is a great cover, by the way. But I think about, that's like the running theme, I think, through all of DeMatteis's work with the character is, the idea of the spider or the man. It's in Kraven's Last Hunt. It's basically here, because he's like, I'm a man. I'm not a boy, the scared little kid anymore. It's in the beginning of the Clone Saga, where, like, again, the parental trauma comes up, and he discards the man and becomes the spider the whole time. And I know, and someone, and I think about, so that's a long running theme in his work. And it's funny because you think about it, too, I've seen some people talk about this. Like, I feel like we don't get JMS's run without this stuff, without what DeMatteis was doing, because it was like the whole question of like, well, the powers and the totem, and this is like proto totem stuff.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny because after this arc, just so people know, you have one of the best humor issues with one of your favorites, P-Thug.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying was in 185 you had the reveal of Frogman, and which was it's a total palate cleanser after this this heavy run, which Frogman was another J.N.D. Mateus creation, but it's a phenomenal character that I love, and it's a fun issue. It's one of the funnest issues you're going to read, and again, it's Frogman and Spider-Man versus the Walrus and White Rabbit, which White Rabbit right now is a prominent character in Spider-Man comics. So it's very interesting that she kind of
her first appearance.
No, she was Marvel team up.
Yeah, I think, but I also think that was written by
J.M.D. Mateus. He created the character.
Yeah. Okay.
Javi, it's been a while since you've said something. Go ahead. If you do, I want to make sure you're not getting overshun here.
Oh no, I mean, this is all good stuff that everyone's commenting about. There's a few things I wanted.
I love this cover too.
Yeah,
that's a great one. But this is from not this story, but this is from Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yeah.
Right. And then we cut to this story, and it's really similar how we play these, he plays these echoes out that just subconsciously just get into your mind, and as we see Peter's, like, I've never read at this point, like, I had never seen like dialogue done this way, where you've got like his inner monologue and then his subconscious inner monologue and his fears coming out. And I mentioned this on Spidey Dude last week, like that recent Miles Morales short film that we got, like, is the closest I think we've come to seeing something like this in some kind of motion. But just in general, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you guys touched on, that like the idea of masks, and even like Harry calls him out on it, that like, this is what you do, like, I know this is how you've always done things, and the layout. So you've got Harry on one side, Peter on the other, and Harry's just trapped in the middle of it. He's like, Norman's my favorite Spider-Man villain, but like, Harry's got to be the most tragic character in all of Marvel comics. Like, he can't catch a break, and it doesn't matter what version of Harry we're talking about. Like this one, just, there's something about it that always sticks with me and resonates, and I just feel so bad for the character and the fate that befalls him, because it wasn't his fault that his dad was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude.
And then if you go by current books, what his dad did to him, it's like, oh my god.
Mr. Baby, did you have something? Did you have something you wanted
to
say?
Yeah. Let Zach throw his thought, and then I'll just go right off of what I said. No, Zach, you're good, man.
You hate Norman by the end of this story.
Oh God, despise.
Like, you hate Norman already.
Like you don't like but Norman as a force of nature. The accidental setting up in this story, you accidentally set up the whole parent saga. That
I love this page. I love him cheering in the background.
Yeah, dude, it's nuts.
It's like, it's scary, but it's also kind of like funny a little bit unintentionally. Like,
nobody made Norman a force of nature better than DeMatteis. This story makes the scepter of Norman and really gets into, like, they'd kind of gotten into Harry's issues, right, with Conway and then the drug issues and the Conway run and stuff.
Sure.
Even with Lynn Wein. But once Lynn Wein leaves, nobody touches Harry. Harry's just this happy-go-lucky, everything's fine, I found Liz, we're gonna make a baby, everything's good. You get to here and it's like, this man broke. Like, every good thing that happened with the Hamilton stuff broke. It's the old adage: once you break a mirror, you can never get it. It cannot be a mirror cannot be repaired without having to be completely replaced because the cracks are always going to be there. And
Mr. B. Oh, sorry.
And the way that he uses Harry the next year and a half is arguably some of the best Spider-Man writing of all time.
Absolutely.
Just
100%.
to touch on that really quick before we get to Nico, like part of the beauty of this whole storyline too is it's just a cog. It's just a little part of everything. Like the characters don't just decide to act the way they are one day just to fit the plot of the issue. Like this is stuff that's building over time. This is stuff that goes back for us decades in the comics. Like it makes the universe feel more cohesive and more real because all these things happened to these characters and it mattered to them and it affected them and how they went with their lives moving forward. And that's part of the power of what JMD does is brings all that in and makes it happen naturally. And it isn't just, well, I'm going to tell a story about this, so I'm going to force these characters into the plot. Like the plot comes from their characterizations.
And it makes the really quick, Nico, and it makes the that ending of 200, with the photo album and the picture of them together. It just makes it hit so much harder.
Exactly. I was going to say something very similar. Is someone who loves 200, I have so much more no, you're golden. I have so much more context with that because of this story, right?
Yes.
Parts like Zach was saying earlier. And on top of it too, so I'm a huge Green Goblin fan. I wore a shirt for the occasion.
Yeah, boy.
But I'm such a Green Goblin fan, not because I condone or enjoy, but to me, he's always been like outside, and this story just reinforces it, but like outside of the Joker, right? I consider the Green Goblin like somehow still like an underrated villain in people's eyes, because like if you think about what the Green Goblin is, I mean, what this story shows is the legacy of what the Green Goblin is. It trickles down so far throughout so many characters in this life, right? With these characters, and it's so to place Harry where he was with his friend and his father, and just all the internal trying to deal with all that trauma and the going back and forth between trying to trust your friend who loves you and is a hero and your father and only choosing to remember the good stuff. Like it's so compelling, and it just shows you like the Osborns are some of the richest characters in comic books. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of people wondered like why they went to Harry so quick in Garfield's second film, and it's because the potential of that character and storytelling is so rich and so strong that it's like, man, if you told me they were gonna use the two of them again in Tom Holland's films going forward, I would sign up right for it. Give me more Gobby stuff, because I think it also places Spider-Man in one of his hardest places ever, trying to deal with what was the arch foe of him, but also the way it has impacted his closest friend and the way the two of them have impacted some of the other closest people in their lives too. It's just a recipe for just compelling story every single time.
So to jump in, to dovetail off of Javi's point earlier and kind of your point, Mr. Baby, this is where continuity is done great. Everything that is in this story is built off of previous stories, but it's all self-contained. You can read this as a complete story. You don't got to read all the other stuff beforehand. It takes you through. This is where these type of stories, or when I'm arguing about regular Spider-Man stuff, the plot driving the characters, or the characters driving the plot, this is one of the many exhibits that I would give, because this is such a rich, character-driven story. You could have big bombastic stories with Spider-Man all day long. Amazing had it at the time, but you want to that is that's your fast food, right? This is your steak. This is your meat and potatoes. This is your 3-course meal. This is where you're eating good. I'm getting hungry just talking about it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but it's like you'll go back and you'll read this multiple times because you'll find things. You'll find little things to that you might have missed the first time, and it's just a testament. That roster as editor and letting the writers write, my goodness.
Danny Fingeroff is a good dude, and he wrote some great comics himself. He's the guy who wrote Darkhawk, and lots of there's some great stories in Darkhawk too.
He wrote some issues of Web too. He was.
I was gonna say he wrote some issues of Web. I think he kind of periodically show up here or there. I need to get him on the show. We've been mutually acquaintances on Facebook for like 10 years.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I vaguely. Yeah, he probably barely knows who I am, but
he's on my short list that I'm going to try to reach out to this year on SD. And when that happens, we'll be here.
I need to get him on and just kind of, because I would love to interview him about not just Spider-Man but Darkhawk too. I think Darkhawk's such a great character, and just it feels like Marvel's trying to always reboot Darkhawk, and it's like, guys, it's not rocket science here. But anyway, I digress. As we wind down, Javi, you talked a lot about this, and I talked a little bit about it already, was the fact that this is not a story that is collected. It's just a travesty. And Mr. Baby, I love the fact that you're familiar with issue 200 of this, because this is exactly like predates 200. Like I said before, this is all set up. Like, if this, I had no idea this was his first series or story off the bat. Obviously, he wanted to set up 200. Like he probably pitched the idea because no one probably wanted to give a crap about Harry. Everyone wanted to do their own thing. No one wanted to. Green Goblin's kind of like that thing that you're the toy your dad played with, but you're like, you don't know if you want to play with it or not because you don't want to get in trouble. Like that, it feels like that's what the Green Goblin was, and he had no fear, and said, "No, I want to get Green Goblin back in Spider-Man." I mean, I'm assuming that's what he said. He probably pitched them this idea, and he laid the groundwork all there, and 200 is an all-timer. And
amen.
It's and not only 200, but I want to say, is it 181?
189.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, 189. Yeah, take it, 189. The hologram issue, anniversary issue.
Yeah,
another fantastic comic book, by the way.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me.
The best of the 30th anniversary, in my opinion.
That is without a doubt. Without a doubt.
ASN is good, but that one's
fine. Yeah, but. It's crazy to me they haven't put a trade out of like the Green Goblin DeMatteis stuff, like just by itself, because they used to do that back in the day. I mean, like, look, I have this like fun. I haven't put it out yet, but this is my Villainy of Dr. Doom comic where it's like this is a bunch of like just random Doom stories together, right? How fun is that? Like, just give us this. Like, give us all the Green Goblin issues from DeMatteis and Sal Buscema, put it in a trade, put it as like the return of name it something rad. That
they had Sins of the Father.
They had a
perfect. Yes, Sins of the Father. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, they had a 6-issue trade that covered a lot 189, 200. I think a couple of the issues that led up to it, but they didn't include this, and it's such a disservice. Like, this is we desperately need a omnibus of DeMatteis's work on Team Up and on this. Like, it's desperately needed.
Dude, this guy, dude, he's spitting hot fire right there. Wow.
He had been British.
Woo! I mean, where's the lie? I don't know.
No lie. There is no lie.
I mean, if he was, homie, you're spitting hot fire there, man. I can't argue with that. I mean, if you
living up to the namesake.
I mean, here's the Here's the problem too. Like DiMatteo, Sabusema, again, they were going up against the Image Boys, right? Like you're talking about, even Bagley was undervalued back then. Bagley, freaking Alex Savick, obviously Sabusema, all these great artists, Ron Friends, the guys who are just like killers in the industry, and they just were not drawing. They're so influenced by the old school original Marvel guys. These next generation kids who came in and were fantastic storytellers, like Jim Valentino, Eric Larson. I digress, but the problem is that they couldn't, when they came on their own, it was harder for them, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, to make and do it consistently. And these guys showed without having, they didn't need much work or much oversight, you could say. Everyone knew, give a script to Jim, or excuse me, to Sal, give a script to, Alex or Mark. They're going to knock it out of the park. We're fine. It's not going to look like shoulder pads and guns everywhere, and have Spider-Man with his legs underneath, up above his ears, with his crotch in his face, with webs flying everywhere. I love that. I mean, very clear. I love that. This is not, but that's not those guys. They're more efficient. Now, I love McFarlane's a great layout artist too. This is not a shit on McFarlane by any means, but Sal is so efficient and so emotional and so cinematic that it got overlooked. And if you got is it Jewish Dragon? Is that the name? Jewish Dragons? I'm sure I'm saying that right. Yeah. Jewish Dragons. If J.F. DiMatteis was British and came in part of the British invasion of Milligan, Morrison, Moore, et cetera, yeah, you're right. He may get more notoriety, and him writing Spider-Man might be, considered like a masterpiece, which it is, but no one really talks about it like that. And DiMatteis is too humble to really, to bark at that tree a little bit, because he's a good guy.
I do think, I mean, maybe it's just like, I mean, it's Twitter, whatever, like who cares? But I mean, it's not real life, but I feel like I think I see a lot of fans and a lot of young fans give this stuff its flowers. Now I don't know about the critics
I've seen a lot,
but the youth of today seem to really gravitate toward this stuff.
I've seen a lot of people online. The online community has always hyped up DiMatteis's work.
Right. Yeah.
And he's always gotten a lot of respect, at least in the sections of like Spider-Man online fandom that I've been a part of over the years. Everybody talks about KLH, and it's great. Don't get me wrong, but this is arguably on par. And because it's so long form, it's not just that short, 9 issues. It's 20 issues. It's a solid 2-year run here that is just absolutely. And it took him a while to get to this point. He talks about that when we've talked to him in the past about his team up run. His team up stuff was, it's all right. But this stuff,
his team up in general is just not great. Conway had a run on it. Claremont had a run on it. I mean, it's very all over the place. And DiMatteis had some solid issues too. He had some funny, hilarious ones. I remember I brought up to him that he went to different dimension. Don't even get me started on Mantlow's run on Team Up, which is just insanity.
Some of that stuff's bonkers, dude. Bonkers.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, though. I mean, DiMatteis is going to go down, and thanks for reminding me to buy that issue. By the way, Javi, I need to buy that tomorrow. But I'm also wondering, should I wait for the trade? Miniseries are always weird with me. But listen, let's start wrapping up here. I think that DiMatteis is such, like the Jewish Dragon said it. Everyone on here probably would say it. He's so underrated, and has written maybe 2 or 3 of some of the best Spider-Man stories ever made. And is, I mean, it's like, it's crazy. And, we talk about, we talk about, Watchmen. We talk about Year One, Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns, again, the GOAT, best Batman story of all time. You heard it here first. You shouldn't hear that first, but other people out there in Twitter land will say no. Chris, Batman Book Club, Javi, all you buttholes. No, but
whoa.
Javi knows. Javi knows I love him. But I'm just joking. But listen, seriously though, I went on record, on a Patreon podcast with the MCU fan show years ago, and we reviewed Kraven's Last Hunt, and I said this is on the level of the Watchmen in the Dark Knight Returns, and he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't agree." I'm like, "You insane," because it is by far, I think, one of the best comic books ever written, and I stand by that. Zach and DeMatteis' work is fantastic. It is, and I think the Cloud. Thank you. And I just think that when I look at like The Child Within, it's not quite there, but it ain't that far either. Yeah, and I think Child Within is just it needs more props, it needs more love, only because I want people to experience the story, and I want to be the last thing I'll say is you need to experience the story. You can know what happens, it doesn't matter, and that tells you how good it is because you have to experience this comic series, this series story, to really get the layouts, the emotion of what these storytellers are telling. So, Zach, I'll throw it to you first for the wrap up here. Why don't you tell us your final thoughts and where can people find you? Yeah, get your stuff out there.
My final thoughts are: this is the story that helps make the Norman return feel more visceral and personal, and brings back that personal nature of Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. This is what sets that up. You can find me over on the Spidey Dude Radio Network. There are some people that are in the chat that are watching us live from there. So we usually simulcast when I'm on the Comic Binge. I'll try to simulcast, but we are going to be on tomorrow night talking about Web of Spider-Man #1 and the latest 2 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, dealing with the Ravencroft Institute, which was a big place setting with this story. So yeah, you can find me over on X/Twitter at Spidey Dude Radio. You can find me over at Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Spidey Dude Network. You can support our stuff on Spidey Dude on Patreon.com/Spidey Dude Network, and of course the YouTube page Spidey Dude Radio Network. And
don't leave us hanging, bro.
Over
me? What'd I do?
No, Zach froze up on my side.
Oh, yeah, I see. I was like, what? I'm
over at Spidey-Dude.com.
There you go. All right, Zach. Thank you. I don't mean to interrupt you a bunch on this. I know you're like me. We both need to be reined in.
Listen, I'm not upset. This is your shit.
I know, but I know, but not only that, I just love you. I don't want you to be mad at me. So I just want to make sure
I love you. Here, let me get the hearts going.
All right. You know, Zach, I love you. That's why. If I didn't love you, you wouldn't be on the council. How could you be a master if you're not? How could you be not a master if you're not on the council, right? I mean, it's just a little Star Wars reference.
I just want my cool robes and my little cool sword.
Well, you got a Spidey sword. You got Miles' Spidey Venom sword for you.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Adam, pizza time. You are always appreciated. I love your thoughts. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Joining the council.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Where can people find you at, man?
Enchilada legs all over the place, and Spidey Dude Radio Network, Spidey Dude Experience, Comic Binge here and there.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should check out our DeMatteis interviews on Spidey Dude Radio Network. Those are really good and fun, and he's a great guy, and
he's a fantastic guy. Real dude. He's a real one.
He's an OG, man.
He'll be back
an OG for sure.
For the DeMatteis verse, the next phase when it launches.
Cool. Right on. And Jewish Dragons, thank you for joining us and your first episode. If you would be so kind, if you honor us, if you would subscribe, if you haven't watched this already, like what, Mr. Baby, I'm gonna throw you on the spot. You're laughing at me. This is what you have to do.
No. Read my name.
Yeah.
Man. Into the Javiverse, and Javi saw it and he started laughing, which made me in turn start laughing.
Okay.
Which is now why Zach and Adam are both laughing.
I'm laughing at you now.
Okay. All right. Mr.
My
Baby,
greatest contribution to the binge probably is the Hobbyverse.
No, it really was like you just had to be there, dude.
Yeah,
I wanted to run through a wall after, and I'm not just saying that. Like that was the most. There was so much juice that he injected into that monologue of greatness.
P-Thug, have you made a playlist of just the Spider-Man Council stuff?
Oh yeah, it's all on there. All playlists are all on there, man. I'm a big playlist guy. So if you're out there, there's a playlist of all Marvel stuff, DC stuff, but obviously, there's a Spider-Verse one too with Javi stuff on there. But yeah, the Spider-Man Council has its own playlist, which the beauty of the council and of the comic binge in general, in my opinion, if I may say one compliment on myself, is that it's trying to be evergreen as possible, and that you can watch this like 10 years from now, tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You can, and it's all relevant. Yeah, exactly. It's always relevant. So, yeah, always there. But yeah, go ahead and subscribe, like all that stuff. Mr. Baby, always appreciate you staying up late for me, sir.
I'm always honored to be here.
I know Meg's probably like, where the hell are you right now? It's like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and like,
Meg's right now, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well,
but she might catch the rewatch, and I'm gonna be back in a couple weeks. So that's her excuse to tune in.
Babe, wake up! Nico's coming back to the comic bin.
Babe, wake up,
Nico. I'll watch you anytime.
Wow, that's a little weird. No, but Meg, if to show you've watched this, I better see a comment at the bottom of this show sometime this week to prove that you watched your man all the way through.
To prove
for you and for him. Meg. And for me, so I make sure I get people watching all the way through. So anyway, I digress. Anyway, Nico, go on.
With where people
final thoughts. Yeah. Final thoughts.
There's a lot that was said there.
There was a lot that was said.
Jesus you can find me in the Javiverse right now. That's where I want to be. That's where you should all want to be. But no, Twitter, because I refuse to call it X.
Yeah.
You could on TikTok at Nico Knows Film, doing a lot of film stuff on there. At the Vigilante 1939, Italian Spider-Man Coalition comic binge in a couple weeks. My social security number is
back on with Pete.
We've talked about my return. Yes.
Nice.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah. All right, on.
Heck yeah.
That's great.
You got to read Ultimate, Nico. I'll tell you that.
I know.
You haven't read Ultimate yet?
I haven't read Ultimate because there's not a.
You have copies?
Actually, there is a comic shop near me. No, I don't. I haven't.
Bro.
I've got copies.
Yeah.
But we'll talk after the show.
Hold on, Nico can't go to his comic shop. Remember? Don't you remember him talking about this already?
I can't go back.
He can't go back. He's done. He's put a fork in
Me and
him.
My dad have like a year's worth of
giant
and we're just like, we just have to go somewhere else now, but because we don't live together anymore. We have to figure out some sort of other transactional thing, but we'll make it work. But like I have to because I watched your guys' show last Wednesday. When you reviewed issue 3, which was a great show, and that I was like, okay, I got it. I have to get in on this. I was getting FOMO real bad during that episode, and that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's great to have you. It's great to have you. Maybe we'll do a big review of it, and you can jump on that with a Spider-Man Council episode. Yeah. The first 6 issues, because I haven't been on I haven't really done a lot of reviews with it. I jump in when I can for the Spidey Dude show, but anyway, but yeah, Nico, I'll see you obviously. I'll see you online. Yeah, we'll see you. So, Javi, El Corazon.
Final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
I mean, this is just a perfect little Harry Goblin trilogy story between this and 189 and 200, and it gave them a good reason for the Clone Saga to happen, the second Clone Saga. Or is it the third? I don't even know anymore at this point. There's so many.
Listen, Linda. It's the
There's
second.
like 4 or 5. I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's
my soapbox.
Yeah, it's just you don't have to have like big earth-shaking threats to like all of humanity being wiped out to have just a high-stakes dramatic story. I mean, this is just between 3 people at the end of the day, told by some masters, and I'm so excited that like Nico finally got to experience this story.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
And hopefully some other people in the comments will go seek this out. I hope they find copies for a reasonable price and get to see what all the love that we felt tonight, where it came from. And like Adam mentioned, go to Spidey Dude. We had a recent interview with JMD. You guys, Paul was on one 2 years ago when one of his other miniseries came out. So definitely go check those out. Go to the comic shop tomorrow, April 3rd, and get his new book, Read Ultimate Spider-Man. You can find me at thejamesbonddossier.com, where I'm reviewing the Garth Ennis written 007 comic, which is weird to say. Batman on Film, I've got reviews for Catwoman. The Batman First Night Black Label book. Pick that up. Paul knows what I'm talking about.
It's
that is a banger. It's a perfect 85th anniversary book. What else do I got? I had an appearance recently on the Italian Spider-Man Coalition where Pete Vera and I talked some 90s Spider-Man episodes, which is a lot of fun. Peter is an awesome dude, and I love listening to all his podcasts. So
Pete is
if you're not
control.
listening to Peter Vera on Batman on Film or Straight Outta Gotham or Italian Spider-Man Coalition or the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, it's a secret underground podcast that he does because it's his favorite version of Batman.
Absolutely.
Listen to that guy too. But yeah, Batman on Film, I got reviews, Batman animation shows, up to speed with Wally West. Still trying to crack that annual recap so I can get that episode done with and keep moving forward. And Comic Binge, I think we got some awesome stuff. Chris couldn't be here tonight, the Reverend Clow, but schedules permitting, we've got Knights Never Die.
Finally,
off delayed episode. It's been a bit of a 2024, but when do we have that coming up, Paul?
I think it's the 24th.
24th.
One of those days. Yeah, 24th.
So far,
yeah, 24th.
Let's just say tentative
so far,
because God only knows this thing's been pushed back like a couple times.
Yeah, and we've got
Knights Never Dies coming back to the binge this month. We're wrapping up the first arc of Batman and Son, and we would love to have you guys join us for that.
Yep. Yes, and we'll be doing so next week. We got 52 Volume 4 finally with Mr. Baby and the Reverend. Maybe Papa Nick will show up. I don't know, probably not, but never know. Javi, you're invited if you want to join in.
I'm trying to make it happen hard. I'm trying to make it happen hard.
But after that, we've got Justice with Ricky and my boy Ricky Church. We're gonna read the Alex Ross first 6 issues of that. It's a 12-issue series, but I said let's just read the first 6 issues, and then we've got Knights Never Die, and then May. Lots of SH is gonna hit the fan for May as always. So always comic book goodness here.
We also need to do another slot symposium, sir. But
I know. Hey, look, I know. Listen, I know I need to get on that. Life is a little insanity, but we'll figure it out. But all right, everyone, thanks for watching. Like button, subscribe, all that crap. But Chris Kyle isn't here, so